Morning, everyone. We're going to start here in a couple minutes. Thank you for coming here on a Friday morning. I have drank a lot of coffee, so I'm sure you guys have too. We're almost done with the conference. Just a couple housekeeping things before we start. At the front, we have free samples. It's $5 free back to you because that's the kind of sample we have in terms of our product. We give money back to suppliers. We've also got bags at the front, so please grab one on your way out or now before we start. And we're excited to begin in a couple minutes here. Thanks.
Good morning, everybody. Just like Allie, I have also had a lot of caffeine this morning. We are trying to get hyped to get you guys excited to talk about not the most fun topic in the world, deductions. But we are going to get through it together as we have for the last 2.5 years during unprecedented times TM. Do not say that. Allie has told me I have to behave myself up here. Usually, if you guys have ever been to a SupplyPike webinar before, we usually have a couple of minutes of just fun, silly questions as people are getting settled in. So we're probably going to do the same thing here. If you have never been to a SupplyPike webinar, buckle up. It's a lot of fun. We cover a lot of really, really fun content. And again, we try to do it in a way that is interactive, interesting, and relevant to the folks that are here today. So in SupplyPike fashion, we are going to go ahead and kick us off with a couple of questions to get everybody, kind of waking up a little bit. I think it's the first talk of the morning. I promise it is not going to be an awkward icebreaker where you have to talk to people you don't like or don't know. But we are going to ask for just a little bit of crowd participation just by a show of hands. So, Allie, do you have our first question of the day?
I do. And Stacy and I lead free webinars pretty much twice a week. So we always try to begin with a fun question. And I'm going to start with a divisive one.
Oh, boy. Here we go.
Is cereal a soup?
Okay, if you guys think that cereal is a soup, let's see your hands. Anybody?
Be brave, share.
Oh,
yeah,
we
got
have one
in the back.
Okay, you can leave now. I'm kidding. Anybody else? No? Okay, all right. Not as divisive as we thought it would be.
Okay, yeah. Well, the one that really is a hot dog a sandwich or a taco?
What? I didn't realize that taco was an option. Okay, show of hands if you think hot dogs are a sandwich, which, okay, I mean, it's,
Okay, yeah.
we have a few.
More
Okay.
than a taco.
Or do we think hot dogs are a taco? Oh, we have a
Okay.
few. Our taco's a sandwich. Whoa. Tacoception.
But then, like, pigs in a blanket, is that a bun? Like,
I'm stressed now.
yeah. There's a lot to cover there.
Yeah,
we need to
exactly.
make like a whole chart, kind of sorting out the family tree.
Like a food taxonomy?
Yes.
Okay.
Exactly.
Dewey Decimal System for food?
Yes.
Okay, fair
Yes,
enough.
Exactly.
All right, looks like we don't have to kick any of you crazy people out.
No.
I think so far we're doing well.
Yeah. Yeah. And then Stacy, I guess I'll ask you and also our crowd here as people are filing in. What has been your favorite thing about Philly?
Ooh, okay. So on our very first day here, we went and got a Philly cheesesteak. And it was the first time. Okay, don't judge me. We're from Arkansas, okay? We don't have real Philly cheesesteaks in Arkansas. We got a real one at a place called Ishkabibbles. If you guys haven't been, A+. And, that's been my favorite thing so far. Also, Philadelphia is beautiful. It's really, really cool. What about you, Allie?
Yes. Well, I think I really wanted to go to the Lizzo concert.
Oh.
It looked really fun.
Yes.
I saw some videos online. But honestly, getting full off of the market outside next to this building, as well as some of the samples, so great. There was like a potato cheese thing, changed my life.
Oh my gosh, I love it. No, that's awesome.
Sweet. Well, let's go ahead and get started.
Alrighty.
We'll formally introduce ourselves. My name is Allie Trong. I'm the content coordinator at SupplyPike, and this is the wonderful Stacy Tan. Stacy has been in the supplier world for, I'm not going to age you.
Please don't.
But
For a long time.
for a long time. You've called on Walmart. You've been around the bend, and we really appreciate the insights you bring to our team as the VP of Retail Insights. And then today we're going to be talking about deductions. So here's a quick recap of where we're going today, our roadmap. we're going to start talking about supply chain, the overall trends, and then we're going to kind of boil down into Walmart deductions. And there's a lot of ways we can go, but we're going to filter down into AP deductions or accounts payable deductions. And we're going to talk about the fact that you can dispute those when they are invalid and how you can win your money back. And then we're going to have a Q&A, so please participate. We would love to hear your questions, your comments. During our webinars that we lead or our in-person events, we thrive because we have a supplier community in Northwest Arkansas that is responsive, wants to share, like, hey, I disputed this code 22 this way, and it worked really well for me. So we hope to recreate that here in Philly with all of you. And then additionally, if you haven't heard of us, we are SupplyPike. We are a software company based in Northwest Arkansas. If you're thinking, well, I've heard of Northwest Arkansas, it's because it's Walmart headquarters. So we're just a hop, skip, and a jump down the road from the Walmart HQ. And that's really baked into our culture and to the software that we've created. But we have cloud-based tools that help with revenue loss management. And then we've got some of the brands that we work with, but we have been trusted by over 400 plus brands, and we just really appreciate working with suppliers, getting to save them time and money when it comes to deductions in retailers like Walmart, Target, Amazon, Kroger, and we're continuing to expand. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and kick us off into the content portion of today. So we're going to talk about the high-level trends of supply chain, and I'll go to the next slide here. So here are the three kind of overarching trends we're seeing with our suppliers that we work with, and even some of the Walmart leaders that we have conversations with. So the first one is the supply chain is tired. Even if I'm just talking personally about my experience in supply chain, I'm exhausted, and I'm sure all of you are, as well as just the overall industry. We're seeing just kind of a sluggish nature to the way things have been running with the unprecedented times. I promise that's the last time I'll say it. And then supply chain is growing rapidly. We're going to get into that a little bit, as well as supply chain needs a single source of truth. And Stacy, as we go to the next slide, I want you to kind of talk to us about what these headlines mean and how they tie together and what it means for the weariness of this industry and while it's still growing.
Yeah, no, I agree with Ali completely. As we were kind of working on the content and kind of talking about it last night, one thing Ali and I came up with is, we are preaching to the choir here. You guys are on the front lines of dealing with unprecedented times, TM. Supply chain has honestly been pushed to its limits over the last 2.5, 3 years, and I'm sure all of you guys have felt it. Obviously, we have screenshots from some of the biggest headlines that you guys are aware of, but again, everyone is aware, obviously, in 2020, the pandemic kicked off, and then we had to deal with just a whole bunch of shortage issues, supply chain issues. We couldn't get product out of China. You couldn't get containers for less than $20,000 a pop. There were things like truck driver shortages. And, we kind of thought that we were slowly starting to get out of it in 2021. And then next thing you know, you have yet another wave that pops up. Everyone kind of goes into semi-lockdown again, and you have the same weird demand spikes. And how do you forecast for that? As Ali mentioned, we work with about close to 500 suppliers at this point, and we have been having some really, really, just difficult conversations with them as they've tried to really navigate this. And we wanted to kind of talk about this more to level set, hopefully to help you guys feel that you are not alone. It's really, really easy. As Ali mentioned, I kind of worked in the supplier industry I'll age myself for over a decade. And so, I understand it can really, really feel like you're siloed, right? It's really easy to feel like, it's just us and it's us against the world. And sometimes it's us against Walmart. You didn't hear me say that. But you're not alone in this. At the start of 2022, I think, we all saw the industry analysts kind of say, hey, we're kind of coming out of things. Things are opening back up. COVID is quote unquote over. We won't get into that. But then we had a whole onslaught of new challenges this year. So, for example, The most recent thing that we've talked about is the railroad strike that thankfully has seemed to have, potentially been resolved at this point. We've seen situations, obviously, with the Russo-Ukrainian war, and things are kind of, again, escalating in the recent couple of weeks. So it's just, it's again, we kind of joke about it, but it truly is unprecedented times. And we really want to kind of help you guys and give you guys a little bit of guidance to understand how are other suppliers navigating this world today? So I would completely agree with you, Allie, that it's a tough place to be right now if you're a supplier.
It's a tough place, and it used to be an industry that was kind of under what consumers have experienced, but now we have, regular people who are talking about supply chain lead times. And it just shows that it's becoming more connected with our culture and what we expect, but it also points to the growth that we're seeing in this industry.
No, and I completely agree with what Allie's talking about with regards to growth. Again, aging myself a little bit here, but I remember the good old days before things like OTIF scores. And I remember when OTIF was introduced and the scores were like 70%, and that's fine. I'm sure if you guys have been supplying to Walmart for a while, in September of 2020, that's when they increased their OTIF scores to 98%, which holy cow. And so there's been a really, really growing focus on supply chains. And as a result of that, and as Ali kind of alluded to earlier, because of that growing focus, people are just caring more and more about supply chain. So there's an increase not only in capacity at factories, but they're also trying to figure out how you increase capacity with trucks, with railroad, and things like that. So we did find a stat that says that, supply chain was valued at about $10 billion in 2020, and it's expected to just about double in the next, 4 to 5 years, which is really, really cool. So it's obviously kind of, again, pointing to a bigger trend that people care more about supply chain. We will get into this a little bit more, but obviously retailers like Walmart, again, are getting, let's go with creative with how they are introducing newer and stricter programs, things like the On-Time in Full program at Walmart, Deductions, the SQEP program. If you guys are, paying attention to the news, you probably have also heard of the Collect Pickup program at Walmart. So there are a lot of ways where retailers are really kind of honing in on supply chains and making it an extremely part of doing business with them.
Yes, and who bears the brunt of all of that change, that growth, the growing pains? It's the people in this room, it's the people at this conference, it's suppliers, it's manufacturers trying to figure out how we deal with our priorities, growing our businesses, but also on the back end, kind of the things we focus on in deductions and where those money leaks just happen when it comes to running businesses.
Exactly. So I think, again, we are preaching to the choir here. We're probably not saying anything that you guys aren't already aware of, thinking about, probably receiving regular newsletters and updates about through the news. But essentially, you guys know what all the growing pains are. So obviously there is a chaos of dealing with multiple retailer apps and portals. So as you, really get deep into the Walmart business, the OTIF dashboard, the SQEP dashboard, DSS, Transportation Portal 2.0. There are more and more ways that you need to get deeper and deeper into the data and just aware of what's going on if you're not already. Obviously, unpredictable world events. We used to, in our earlier presentations, talk about Black Swan events, and I feel like I've been using the term Black Swan like every other month because something new and, again, unprecedented has happened. Obviously, things like obstacles like deductions and compliance, as we mentioned, are becoming a bigger and bigger deal. And then also just figuring out how do you, as Ali mentioned, how do you adapt? How do you change your priorities? How do you decide what the biggest fire is? Because there are a lot of them and they are happening all the time.
Yeah, that even makes me think about all those suppliers we work with to having pricing conversations. So inflation is a huge deal right now. We need to have price increases, but then also manage the expectations of deductions and the other priorities that come along with that. So I'm right there with you, Stacy.
Exactly. So, in summary, this is probably how a lot of suppliers feel right now. Again, we just want you guys to know that you are not alone in this. It is a quickly changing world, quickly adapting world. Suppliers are kind of expected to adapt right along with it. And as Ali mentioned, we want to help you guys at least navigate a part of it today. We only have an hour with you guys, an hour and a half-ish. So we won't be able to tackle the big wide world of retailer everything. But hopefully, as we kind of hone in on, really today's topic of deductions, we can at least give you guys a lay of the land on what's going on there. And then kind of talk you through how you actually fight those deductions. Because as Ali mentioned, a lot of times they are not necessarily valid, and it's something that you can actually try and get money back for.
Right, and Stacy, we're talking about Walmart deductions today, but most of the suppliers I talked to today or yesterday are focused on KE and Unify,
Yeah.
And we see a lot of overlap in these suppliers as well. So what might apply to Walmart, which is one of the bigger trend settings when it comes to retailers, we see in other retailers like Target, Amazon following suit. So that's one thing I just wanted to point out before we jump in.
No, absolutely. Yeah. Thank you so much, Ali. So the big question that we are going to try and answer for you guys today, how is revenue loss prevention possible while balancing all of the other priorities? It's something you can do. It's something that we hope to kind of, again, walk you guys through today. And then, as Ali mentioned earlier, we will have a question and answer section. So if we don't get to everything, definitely feel free to let us know. And we would love to have conversations with you guys. All right, so we're going to go ahead and kind of kick off into the meat and potatoes of our presentation today and really talk you guys through Walmart deductions and what the basics are. So I always kind of like to level set just to kind of let you guys know this is a little bit of an introductory kind of 101 level course. So I'm sure we have a lot of guys that have been doing business with Walmart for a long time. Hopefully this is a good refresher if you guys know a lot of this stuff. And hopefully you'll learn something new if you've been doing this for a while. But again, if at any point you guys have questions, just kind of keep them, make a note of them, and we'll make sure that we can go back through any of these slides and kind of talk through them later on. But yeah, so first thing that we kind of want to walk through with you guys is that deductions fall into a lot of different buckets at Walmart. I know a lot of times people use things like deductions and compliance and make them kind of interchangeable. With Walmart, they actually fall into very, very distinct buckets. So I'll talk through kind of each section separately, but mainly you're going to see accounts payable deductions, accounts receivable deductions, and post audits. So let's go ahead and kind of deep dive into each one of these and talk through what they mean, where you're going to find them, and what you can do about them. So for an accounts payable deduction, this is a very specific scenario, and it's essentially when Walmart decides to withhold payment or short pay you on an invoice that you send to them. So a really simple, basic example of this is, hey, Walmart ordered 100 cases of something. You sent them 100 cases of something and invoiced them for those 100 cases, and Walmart can decide to only pay you for 75 of them for insert reason here. I don't know if I would call this a fun fact, but it is a fact. Walmart has about 75 different AP deduction codes that they can short pay you for. So they can be anything from shortage-related deductions. So essentially, Walmart is saying, hey, you invoiced me for 100, I only received 75, quote unquote. We will talk about we'll talk about validity judgments in a little bit, but kind of Walmart is basically saying we didn't receive everything that we ordered from you. There are other scenarios where they can short pay you for things like allowances, pricing discrepancies, returns, damages, and things like that. So again, 75 different codes, but essentially how you know it is an AP or accounts payable deduction, you invoiced Walmart and they decided to not pay you the full amount. So you can see here that the deduction is withheld from a check. The beauty of AP deductions is that there is a very clear and formal path to dispute these. So if you are getting short paid on a check, you invoice them for 1,000, they paid you 750. If you don't believe that that is correct, there is a formal path to resolution. So you can dispute this deduction and say, hold on, this is not correct. You should pay me for the full amount, and I have a whole bunch of proof for you guys. So one thing I kind of wanted to point out too is that across these 75 different codes, there are also 75 different ways to fight these deductions. So each code requires its own type of documentation. It requires its own way that you submit a dispute, and you kind of have to know what that is, because at the end of the day, when you submit a deduction dispute, it gets fired off to a team called Genpact. So Walmart utilizes a third party, and what they are doing is Genpact will actually receive your dispute, and they will manually check it. So they'll look for documents, they'll read the descriptions that you send in, they look at the pricing that you send in, and they will make a call to say, yes, this is correct, let's go ahead and pay it back, or not. So it's really important that you are sending your information and documentation in a way that Genpact says is correct and acceptable, or they can turn around and deny it and say, no, we're not going to give you that money back. So some examples of AP deductions you guys can kind of see on the screen here: shortages, allowances, returns, pricing discrepancies, and things like that.
Yes, Stacy, and I just wanted to point out, and maybe this is more of a question, Genpact, in the age of automation, it is nice when it's like, okay, this dispute is going to a human.
Yes.
And correct me if I'm wrong, Genpact is based in Northwest Arkansas.
So they used to be based in Northwest
Okay.
Arkansas. Walmart has actually offshored the Genpact team to India. So now if you do submit any deduction disputes, it gets fired off to India, and the team there reviews them. We've heard mixed reviews, honestly, about it. Some of the suppliers that we work with have said, hey, it's been a quicker turnaround time for us. But then others have also said, yes, it's quicker, but then we're getting a lot of denials. So it's kind of been a little bit of a hit or miss, honestly, with the Genpact team reviewing AP deductions. But that's a great question.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah. So one thing that we wanted to point out for you guys is that shortage-related deductions. So these are some of the different codes that are available, but codes 22, 24, and 25 in particular, they make up the vast majority of kind of shipping-related deductions that we see at Walmart. So as again, Ali mentioned, so this is real data from some of the suppliers that we work with. Again, we work with about 500, so it's pretty good sample size. And this has been universally true for the suppliers that we work with. If Walmart is taking money away, which, by the way, I gotta stop saying fun fact because these are not super fun, but on average, we find that our suppliers lose about 6.5% of their invoice to deductions, and of that 6.5%, vast majority is coming from codes 22, 24, and 25.
And that's at other retailers. So like I mentioned, we're in we have customers in Target, Amazon, et cetera. And we did kind of a retail deductions compared. Everybody across the board was like, it's shortages. It's the shortage deductions. And I may be just, reiterating information everybody knows, but that's what our suppliers are feeling, is the shortages across, no matter the retailer.
No, and I think that's super helpful, Ali, and something that I think kind of ties back to what we were talking about earlier with how stressed supply chains are. One thing that we're finding is essentially a lot of these shortage-related deductions are coming from just receipt issues at the different retailer DCs. So DCs are stressed. It's a really weird paradox that we're in right now where everyone is quitting, but no one can hire anyone at the same time for some reason. We are seeing those trends at retailer DCs as well. So number one, there's obviously a lot of human error when it comes to receipts at the DCs. But in addition to that, a lot of the retailers that we're working with are also seeing, they're trying to automate a lot of the receipt processes. So Walmart is partnering with a lot of, actually, honestly, pretty cool technologies out there. So is Target, so is Amazon, so is Kroger. But along with automation, as we all know, there is kind of an adjustment period, a little bit of growing pains. And so we are seeing, again, shortage deductions are really starting to spike over the last couple of months even.
Yeah, and I'm going to bring that up when we get into SQEP here in a bit, just because it's going to come back around.
We'll also debate you guys over whether it's pronounced SQEP or SQEP.
Yeah.
We have some strong opinions at the office. Okay, so the next big bucket that I wanted to talk about is the accounts receivable deductions. So again, like Ali mentioned, we're really going to focus on the AP deductions bucket today, but wanted to give you guys, again, that context and the landscape of what deductions look like. So where AP deductions are what happens when you get short paid on a check, so you are invoicing Walmart and they are short paying you for that amount. An AR deduction is when a retailer invoices you. So they are sending you an invoice for, again, insert reason here. You guys can kind of see on the bottom, but really common types of AR deductions that we see are things like OTIF fines and SQEP fines, lumper fees, bulk returns, and things like that. So essentially what's happening is Walmart sets up some arbitrary rules. For example, OTIF, we all know 98% on time in full. SQEP or SQEP has 4 different phases. That's a whole other topic that we do not have time. That would take us like a week to get through the SQEP phases. But essentially, they're setting up arbitrary rules that you have to follow. If you fall out of compliance for those rules for any reason, Walmart will turn around and say, okay, because you were not 98% on time and in full, we are now going to turn around and hit you with a 3% cost of goods sold fine. So that is the key to kind of note. A lot of people tend to get confused between AR and AP deductions because AR deductions also flow through sometimes as a deduction in one of the applications in Retail Link called APIS, and we'll kind of talk through that in a second. But why it flows through as a deduction is because if Walmart invoices you for these fines and you don't pay them, they'll just go ahead and deduct it from your next check anyway. So it does kind of follow a slightly different, I would say, origin source, but essentially what it comes down to is you're going to get something deducted off of a check. So again, with accounts receivable deductions, these are also actually disputable, which is, again, kind of nice to have. There is a formal process in place, but I would say for AR deductions, in our experience, a lot more difficult to get back than AP deductions. Usually because you have to actually go talk to a human being about it, or use kind of a third-party application in order for you to actually get those AR fines back. Okay, so the last major bucket that we wanted to talk about was post audits. So this is a whole other interesting and creative way that Walmart has created to kind of try and recover money from suppliers. So usually AP and AR deductions are happening early on as the POs are happening. So as you invoice Walmart or as product gets delivered to the DCs, you're going to get those AP or AR deductions. For post audits, Walmart actually has a 2-year window to go after anything retroactively that they want to. So in the beginning, when you're shipping, they can hit you with an AP AR deduction, and then kind of from that day on to 2 years later, they actually have the ability to then kind of look backwards in the business and go, oh, we missed some money here. We're going to go and try and get that. So for post audits, Walmart usually will either have an internal retailer team or they also work with third-party companies. I think Apex Analytics is the one that they've been working with lately. So don't be surprised if you guys get a random email, and it usually comes through in an email, and they'll tell you that you owe, X amount of money, and they'll give you, kind of proof documentation with it. The kind of crazy thing about post audits is the third-party teams that they work with are actually incentivized to get as much money back from you as they can. So they get paid a percentage of what they recover from you, which is definitely not a conflict of interest at all. And another scary thing too is, again, because they have that huge window, a lot of times, suppliers, we all know how it goes, right? So teams come, teams go, files get lost, files get deleted. And if you do not have kind of proof, either through email or through an Excel file or whatever it is, or a report that you can pull that kind of goes against what these post-audit companies are saying, essentially you lose that money, right? Because it becomes he said, she said, you don't have proof, and Walmart will say, well, we're going to go with whoever has the proof. So again, I don't want to get too into the weeds with post-audits, but one thing that I really preach to the suppliers that we work with, document everything. Document everything, because they can legally, and they will come after you again with that 2-year window, and it's really important to kind of know what you've agreed to with your buyers, what sort of trade promotions you're doing, what do rollbacks look like, really understand and make sure that you have that saved somewhere, that you can always kind of go back and fight these post audits later.
Well, and Stacy, deductions that are disputed and then are also accepted and you win your money back can come back and haunt you as a post audit, because then Walmart is reviewing with their internal teams or external teams and they're like, actually, let's try this one again.
Yes, yes. So even after, as Ali said, after you win an AP deduction, AR deduction, it can still come back as a post audit.
So save everything.
Save everything, document everything, take pictures, take screenshots. I'm really serious about it. Okay, so one thing that we wanted to help kind of clarify for you guys as well is, so we've given hopefully a helpful introduction on what AP deductions are, AR deductions are, and kind of the post audits. And we wanted to kind of talk through how you actually handle each of these. So again, for today, we're going to be kind of surface level on the OTIF fines and SQEP fines and really deep dive into AP deductions. But Ali's going to talk a little bit later on about some free resources that we have. If you guys, are hearing any of these and going, oh my gosh, we don't know enough about this, we need to go learn more. But really quickly, so as we kind of talked about, refresher, AP deductions are the ones that come off check. So you're invoicing Walmart, they're short paying you for something. So again, as we talked about, invalid deductions, they can be disputed, they can be won back with the right documentation. And the application that you would use for that is something called APDP, so Accounts Payable Dispute Portal. And we'll give you a lay of the land of all of the different apps as well within Retail Link. So if you're not, OTIF fines, so quick refresher, OTIF stands for On Time in Full. Basically, this is Walmart's delivery compliance. They want to make sure that 98% of the things that they order from you arrive on time and arrive in full. So there are a couple of different ways to actually dispute OTIF fines. Previously, you could only do it through your buyer. So you actually had to have a conversation with your buyer. You had to do it on a monthly cadence. Once it was invoiced, it was considered gone. You couldn't do anything about that. That has actually recently changed. Walmart did not make an announcement about this. So if you guys are not aware, you can actually dispute OTIF fines in high radius today. So there was an FAQ document published and buried in Academy in March of this year. And again, you can now dispute OTIF fines through high radius up to 13 months back. So in case you guys didn't know, hopefully that's a helpful nugget that comes out of today. And then SQEP fines, so this is a Supplier Quality Excellence Program. And this is around packaging compliance. So again, this is the program that I was talking about that has those 4 phases for things like barcode compliance, PO compliance, are the cases in good shape, are the labels where they should be, are the barcodes where they should be. For this one, I think one thing to keep in mind is that fines from multiple SQEP phases can stack. So there are 4 different phases. 3 have already launched. Phase 4, we have heard, will be launching at the end of this year. So we haven't heard or seen any official documentation from Walmart, but wanted to kind of give you guys a heads up there. But keep in mind that they can stack. So you can get SQEP fines on the same PO from all 4 phases, which is kind of crazy. But with SQEP fines, very similar to OTIF, you can also dispute that in high radius. So these are kind of the main ways that you can lose money right now. And then kind of, again, really quick introduction of how you can actually go after them and where you should go to fight them. So one thing that I wanted to call out to you guys, and I kind of mentioned that in the previous slide about all of the SQEP, 4 phases of fines can be stacked, is that not only can they stack SQEP fines, but they can also stack fines and deductions across multiple programs. So it is not uncommon for suppliers that we work with to get deductions or fines on one PO. So they can hit you with a OTIF fine, they can hit you with a SQEP fine, and they can also short pay you with deductions. And one other thing that is kind of scary is that for Walmart, within Walmart, these fall under 3 separate silos. So you can go after them, you can dispute these as we've been talking about, but they are kind of independent from each other. So you can go and fight a deduction, let's just call it, on PO 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, you have a deduction, an OTIF fine, and a SQEP fine. You can go and fight that deduction through APDP that we kind of talked about, and you can win that back. That doesn't mean that Walmart is then going to look across the board and go, oh, looks like we were incorrect there. You have an OTIF fine, let's go ahead and erase that. You have a SQEP fine, let's go ahead and erase that. That doesn't happen. So you actually have to be fighting this battle on multiple fronts all the time.
And it feels like the Marvel timeline. I'm going to go there.
Yes.
Because everything is kind of interconnected and it's not happening on the same plane.
Yes.
So maybe you got a deduction in April that you disputed, you're done, and then, May SQEP fines and OTIF fines come out and you're getting on the same PO a deduction. So you really do have to keep everything kind of in line while all the timelines are happening.
No, you're so right, Ali, and I wish we had a Doctor Strange to fix this.
For real.
But one thing that I really, and I promise there's going to be hope at the end of this webinar, I promise. I'm trying not to depress everybody on a Friday. But again, why we wanted to bring this up is because, something we say at SupplyPike all the time is, if you know the rules of the game, you can win the game, right? And so for a lot of the suppliers that we work with, Walmart has these ever-changing regulations, ever-changing programs. And so we try to do as much educational content as we can because we kind of, like it or not, we're in Northwest Arkansas. We live and breathe Walmart. And so it's really important, again, to know what these programs are, know what the rules are so that you can start to prioritize and make sure that you're getting the resource allocation correct. Do you have someone in your team that's looking at OTIF fines? Do you have someone in your team that's looking at SQEP fines? Do you have someone in your team that's looking at AP deductions and really kind of getting into the details of each of those programs?
And are they talking to each other?
And are they talking to each other? Because that's a big deal. But wait, there's more. So in addition to those deductions and OTIF fines and SQEP fines that we talked about, there are also, Walmart is also adding things like supplier fees. So in case you guys, have not heard, Walmart has just introduced a program called the Collect Pickup Program. This is only applicable to suppliers if you are a collect supplier. So basically, Walmart comes and picks product up from your warehouse and gets it to their DC. And before, that used to be quote unquote free, right? So, you kind of gave Walmart a little bit of a discount because you were using their freight and their distribution. But Amazon, if you guys are selling on Amazon as well, they introduced a fuel surcharge in the first quarter of this year. And so Walmart decided that they would follow suit as well. So the Collect Pickup program, again, trying not to get too much into the weeds today, but essentially it's a two-part charge. So there's a departmental percentage just for going to pick up your goods. And there's also a fuel surcharge that fluctuates just depending on the different routes that your freight is taking. So right now, what's kind of crazy and a little bit scary is that things like Collect Pickup program, it's not disputable. So I believe they introduced it, I think, first week of July, if I'm not mistaken.
4th of July weekend.
How
they wanted to celebrate.
Great job, Walmart. Love you. And then it was applicable for any POs that fell into the August timeframe. And then our suppliers have already started to see Collect Pickup program charges in September. So again, I know I am beating a dead horse here, talking about prioritization. But again, do you have teams that are making sure and looking into high radius and seeing what the Collect Pickup program charges are? Because we've already found out that Walmart has already incorrectly billed a lot of suppliers. And so they're actually now issuing credit memos to say, oops, our bad. But again, you need to be kind of aware that this is happening, making sure that you're on top of that. And again, making sure that you have team members in place to, do these numbers look right? Do you know what your departmental charges are? Which, by the way, we have a link to that. And then also, are they charging you correctly?
But I think that alludes to where we're going next in terms of there is hope. There are invalid charges. So it's exciting to see that because it means it is worth it to dispute back 13 months on things that you might be iffy on. There's hope. There are invalid charges.
Yes, there are. So yeah, does anybody feel like this yet? Show of hands if we are very confused. We've got some folks that are like, oh my gosh, where are we? What are we doing? No, as Ali said, there is hope. So we are not going to leave you guys on a really sad note to be like, deductions, they're the worst. They are the worst. But it is possible for suppliers to win back invalid deductions and chargebacks. So as we kind of mentioned, Walmart does have formal systems in place for you to go after this money. It's a little tedious. It's a little manual, but they do exist, and that's what we're going to walk through with you guys shortly. So really quickly, one thing that we wanted to kind of give you guys the context to, as we mentioned earlier. So, as we mentioned, shortages are the most common types of deductions, but the good thing is that these deductions and chargebacks are often very, very invalid, and also what that means is they're disputable. So within the context of Walmart, you have your valid fines, your valid deductions. So yes, we really did short ship. Yes, it really was damaged. Yes, we really did forget to add this allowance when we invoiced. In those cases, supplier's at fault. Nothing much you can do about that to get the money back. But there are many, many more situations where that is invalid. So you did actually ship in full. You did actually include that allowance. There really weren't damages and things like that. So in those situations when they are invalid, you can go after them, you can dispute them, and you can try to get your money back there. So yeah, let's go ahead and get started. Let's talk about how you can actually get your money back. So again, as I kind of mentioned, we are going to be focusing on the AP deduction side. But again, Allie will be sharing some resources towards the end to kind of talk about how you can get your OTIF and SQIP money back as well. I'm sure we've kind of started a lot of thoughts in your heads. We want to make sure that you guys are going to get the information that you need, and all of it is going to be free as well. So if you guys have any familiarity with doing deductions today, all of these pain points are probably very familiar to you. If not, you guys need to go and buy a very expensive bottle of whiskey for your finance team, because this is what they're dealing with. With deductions, it's not easy to get through. So as we kind of talked about earlier on, there are a lot of different portals. Every retailer has a different portal. For example, Walmart goes through Retail Link, Target goes through Partners Online, Amazon goes through Vendor Central, Kroger goes through Levante, and on and on and on and on. And so it's not uncommon for finance teams to just really have to, number one, do you know what those portals are? Number two, do you have access to those portals? Number three, do you have access to the right apps within the portals? And so on and so forth. So in our research, again, kind of work with close to 500 suppliers, we have found that AP Walmart disputes, for example, just to send one claim in takes on average about 20 minutes. And that can be for a dispute that's worth $1. That can be, and obviously for the larger disputes, that often takes a longer time. But on average, it takes about 20 minutes. And so kind of an indirect thing that happens with that is a lot of suppliers will set a threshold, right? So they'll say, it takes me 20 to 30 minutes to send in one dispute. If it's $15, we don't have time to do that. And so what happens is you create a lot of what we like to call leaky bucket situations, where you're just losing money because you're just saying, this doesn't make sense. We don't have the time to go after this. And we get it, right? Suppliers are trying to go after the low-hanging fruit first. So yeah, you have to make sure, again, that you have all the portals, you have to make sure that you have all the documentation, and just basically have your ducks in a row, because if you're going to dispute something, you need to make sure that you're ready to do that.
Yes, and I was walking a booth yesterday. I talked to a woman who does this, and she's like, this is 3 days of my month, every month. The full workday is just deductions.
Oh,
yeah.
Yay. And if you guys have seen any of the deduction portals, by the way, again, buy your finance team some very expensive tequila or whiskey, because it's not. These apps are not made for 2022. So within the context of Walmart, essentially there are three kind of main applications that you need to be aware of, and again, make sure that your team has access to. So the first one is the accounting scorecard. We like to call this kind of a temperature check for your invoices. So this will actually measure your invoice accuracy through invoice matching and through EDI accuracy. So this is more kind of a pre-app, I would say, just making sure that when you're invoicing Walmart, you're actually shipping the things that you shipped, you're invoicing Walmart for the things that they ordered, and all of that good stuff. I would say the kind of main bread and butter that most Walmart finance teams are in every single day is something called APIS, or the Accounts Payable Inquiry System. This is where all of your checks and payments and deductions come through, not only for the AP side, but for the AR side as well. So again, Walmart or Retail Link was made in like 1994. It still looks like a 1994 application. So it's not great, but this is where, again, if your finance teams are looking at your invoices, on your payments and your checks, this is likely where they're spending most of their time. The third app that's really important for you guys to know, again, is APDP, Accounts Payable Dispute Portal, and this is where you actually go in to submit the disputes. So if you are seeing your invoices in APIS have any sort of deductions on them, so you will actually see a negative number, and that indicates that Walmart has taken, X dollars from you. You can actually take that information, go into APDP, and actually submit a dispute that way. So pro tips for you guys. If you haven't already accessed these apps and you're currently shipping to Walmart, really recommend you go check them out. Your Retail Link admin should be able to grant access to you guys for that. If they do not have access for any reason, you should be able to reach out to the Retail Link help desk, and they should be able to grant access for you.
Yeah, and I think this is a good time to pause too. We get this question a lot on webinars. We've had very nice suppliers who are frustrated yell at us because they think we're Walmart. We are not Walmart, but we do go in these apps and we help our suppliers because we know that this is a really tricky thing. But we're very knowledgeable on what's going on. We just are not Walmart.
Yes.
So we'll help you, but we can't.
But please don't yell at us.
Yeah, we can't give you access to these apps.
Allie and I are criers, so.
Yeah.
Okay, so great. So now that we've kind of talked about, again, the landscape of what are the applications that you need to have, what is a deduction, can I go after it, and we've kind of talked through all of that. Let's actually kind of get into the nuts and bolts of what you actually need to dispute a fine successfully. So with Walmart, Walmart laughs in the face of the U.S. justice system because you are guilty until proven innocent when it comes to Walmart deductions. And what that means is Walmart will take the money first, and the onus is on you, supplier, to then turn around and fight them for it. So they are not, even if they discover an error, very, very rarely do they go, oops, our bad, we're gonna return that money to you. The credit memo with the collect pickup program is the first time I have ever seen Walmart give money back. So you are guilty until proven innocent. And again, this is, again, broken record, but why it is so important for you to be aware of all of this. Because if you are not going in and fighting, you are not getting this money back, period. One thing, again, kind of pro tip for you guys, for Walmart, your AP deductions, you have a 2-year window to go after AP deductions. After 2 years, the deductions do expire and you can no longer get that money back. So just be aware of that window, because the last thing we want is, hey, I've been doing business with Walmart for a really long time, and I have something from 2019 and I want to go after it. Unfortunately, that window likely has closed. Carrier deductions have an even shorter time frame, usually about a year, so be aware of that as well. Again, Walmart doesn't post this information anywhere, so hopefully these are helpful tips for you guys. So to dispute a fine, essentially, you're going to need kind of 2 main things. So the first one is basically basic information about the claim. So you're just really going to have to understand, what is Walmart trying to deduct from you? What did you actually ship, and all of that good stuff. And then you're also going to need proof documentation. So as we kind of mentioned earlier on in the presentation, 75 different AP deduction codes, 75 different amalgamations of the different things that you need in order for you to successfully dispute a claim from Walmart. So I'll kind of go through the high level of the main types of information that you guys need for these claims and to go after them. We do have, again, Allie will share the free resource, but we have a free knowledge base for those 75 claims where we will tell you the description and definition of each one, whether or not they're disputable, what documentation you need to go for each one, and kind of what your chances are for success for each of those claims. So we'll be sharing that with you guys shortly as well. But high level, so the different types of information that you're going to need. So obviously you're going to need the claim number. So Walmart is going to give you a specific claim number. Anytime they deduct anything from you, you'll be able to see this in the APIS app that we talked about. Pro tip for you guys, so Walmart can deduct either at an invoice level, or they can do it at a line level. So for example, let's just say you have one PO or one invoice where you have multiple items on it. They can hit you with a shortage claim for one of the items, and then they can hit you with an invoice claim for the whole invoice. So again, really, really be familiar with APIS, understand how Walmart is kind of trying to deduct things from you. Another thing that's really important to know is the claim date. So a lot of times this is confused for the invoice date or the check date. Walmart in particular is looking for the claim date when you are actually filing these claims with Walmart. You would think that they would know the claim date because they are the ones that are submitting the claims to you. But no, the expectation is that you are telling them what the claim date is and the claim number is.
And I'll go ahead and allude to this now. The tip with disputing at Walmart is using their documentation, their resources. So yes, providing these things is helpful, but even just when you're going in and with your bill of lading or other data, providing something from the outside might not necessarily be the silver bullet, right. But using their data is what they want to see to go, got it. This is what we're responsible for.
Right, exactly. No, I totally agree with Ali. And I would also say dispute type, really important to know. And Walmart, again, has kind of their own way of calculating what a different, it's depending on where you're sending it, it's depending on the channel that you're sending it through, so there are different dispute types. That's also included in the knowledge base that Ali will be sharing shortly. So claim code, as we kind of mentioned, these are the 75 different claim codes that are available. One of the pro tips for you guys too is that whenever possible, try to group similar claim codes and dispute them together. So if you have a bunch of code 22s across multiple POs, go ahead and try and get them all submitted together at once. It's going to, again, increase the likelihood and chances of you succeeding. Again, the disputed amount is also going to be important. So this is basically, Walmart comes back and says, hey, you have a deduction for $1,000, and you may go, I want to dispute that $1,000. So one tip that we always like to give our suppliers is go ahead and dispute the full amount. Try and get back as much money as you can because Walmart can actually partially approve any of the disputes that you send over. So it's a nice way to try and get back, again, as much money as you can. We're trying to give you guys as much bang for your buck anytime you are submitting these disputes.
Exactly.
So other types of information that you need, I'll kind of zoom through these because these should hopefully be pretty basic for you guys. Supplier number, so obviously you'll have a 6-digit vendor number that should match whatever claim that you guys received, under. You want to have your purchase order number. Your freight carrier is optional but helpful to have. Location, so again, this is just going to be depending on the type of dispute that you have. So is it to a store? Is it to a DC? Your shipping method is important, so you're either going to be collect or prepaid. We recommend choosing collect if you're not sure what you are. Your transportation team should be able to provide information for you guys on that, but collect if you're not sure. And then the description is optional. So we have found that the GenPack team often doesn't read the descriptions that you send in. The only times these start to come in handy is if they deny something and then you respond with a comment and let them know, hey, here's the BOL that's attached or whatever it is. So I would say, and where I'm going with this is, if you feel the need to say, hey, we shipped this in full, please see BOL attached, it's not going to hurt you in any way. But I would not worry about sending like a 3-paragraph review about why you're asking for your money back. It's going to take you guys a lot of time, and also they're not going to read it. I'm sorry. So a really big part of fighting deductions as well, and we harp on this a lot at SupplyPike because this is, as Ali mentioned, kind of silver bullet that really helps a lot of our suppliers, is making sure that you have your shipping documents attached, especially for any shipping related deduction. So the shortages that we talked about earlier. So if you are a collect supplier, you're going to need to be able to provide a signed bill of lading. And for those of you guys maybe kind of newer to the space, not really sure, a bill of lading is basically a legal document that the truck driver has to sign and basically says, yes, I picked up all these products in full. And again, friendly reminder or refresher, a collect supplier is when Walmart comes and picks up your goods from your warehouse. A prepaid supplier is when you are responsible for getting your goods to the retailer. So you contract with a freight carrier or whatever it is, and if you do that, then you have to be able to provide a proof, also signed, proof of delivery. And basically, exactly what it sounds like. It's basically saying, hey, Walmart ordered 100 cases, and 100 cases got delivered to the DC in full. So Again, going to kind of zoom through these just because hopefully this is something that you guys all know what it is. But a bill of lading, it's again going to be important to have that ship to address, the PO number, basic item information, and then that carrier signature, really, really important. And then for proof of delivery, the ship to address, PO number, basic item information, and then the warehouse or store stamp showing that it was received in full. So those are what they should look like. If you guys are a collect supplier, you should be able to get this from your warehouse. And if you're working with a 3PL, they should be able to provide this for you. A lot of 3PLs today have portals that you can get these from. So you should be able to just put in a PO number, and they should be able to pull that back for you. And then obviously if you're prepaid and you need to get that proof of delivery, a lot of carriers today, Prime, ODFL, will also have their own portals where you can get these documents. So really important. Oh, one kind of pro tip for you guys is depending on who you use for your 3PL or carrier, many of them have windows for how long they keep these documents. So sometimes, for example, UPS and FedEx can be as short as 3 months. And after that, they purge them from the system. That can be really scary, again, if you guys are kind of new to this, because you may go, oh, I have a 2-year window to go after a Walmart claim. Awesome. I'm going to go after one that's a year old, log into FedEx, log into UPS, that proof document is gone. And without this proof document for shortage shipping related deductions, it's almost impossible to win back because, again, it becomes he said, she said, right? You're like, no, we shipped in full. Really? But we have no proof of that. So make sure that you are aware of how long your carriers and your 3PLs are storing documents. And if you do not currently have a systemized way of doing it, I would really encourage you to figure out how you can make sure you're downloading those constantly. Either you have to really, really stay on top of your deductions, or you have to be downloading documents constantly and saving them somewhere so that you don't lose them when you're ready to fight later on.
That computer's going to crash with all those documents and downloading reports from Retail Link.
Listen, it's fine, Allie. It's fine. So other kind of important things to kind of get through really quickly. Again, we know this sounds kind of silly because Walmart should already have this information, but they still want you to attach it, your invoice. So they want to, basically make sure that essentially the Genpack team has the invoice available as well so that they can kind of review what did you invoice them for, what did they receive, so on and so forth. Your purchase order, again, not usually necessary, but it just kind of helps to prove that your invoice matches what was ordered. And then in certain situations, your supplier agreement can come in handy. So your supplier agreement is essentially the contract that you signed with Walmart way back when. I always joke about this one because I remember we would sign supplier agreements and then be shipping on the same supplier agreement 6 years later. I'd be like, I don't remember what I promised you, Walmart. So make sure that you know where to find this. This is really, really helpful for things like allowance-related deductions. So a lot of times we see a lot of code 94s and code 60s. So these are returns allowances and the handling charge that comes along with them. And you will have a defective allowance listed on your OSA or supplier agreement. So knowing that, knowing your warehouse allowance, your store allowance, and things like that, this is where you'll be able to find that. And if you guys are not sure where to find this, please feel free to come find us after this, and we can log into Retail Link and kind of show you guys where to find that. We'll be happy to do that. So this is, again, other helpful proof documentation. As I like Allie called it a silver bullet. It's not necessarily going to be the silver bullet, but again, just really, really helpful information to include, just depending on the type of deduction that you're going after. Okay, so the last thing that we wanted to cover really, really quickly before we kind of get into talking about resources and then the Q&A part is one kind of potential channel that also exists when you're trying to fight deductions is talking to your buyer. So I'm preaching to the choir. I know all of you know there is a very limited social capital with your buyer. You get to see them. They're like, what are those? It's like Groundhog Day. You only get to see them once a year during line review season.
And hopefully summer or spring's coming sooner,
exactly,
not winter.
Exactly. But it can be a useful tool when you are working on kind of larger deductions issues. So I would say if you're kind of working on kind of onesie, twosie, shortage-related deductions, please don't email your buyer about them. Number one, they won't know what's going on because it goes to Genpack. And number two, we heard on average buyers get 500 to 600 emails a day. Mm-hmm. in their inboxes. So please don't be that person that's like, urgent, please help me get $12 back. They will yell at you. And that will be your fault. I'm kidding. But it can be a really useful tool if you are working with larger issues. So things like pricing discrepancies, if you're working on post audits especially, really don't be afraid to use your buyer as a tool. But again, I know I'm preaching to the choir here, but just be cognizant of your relationship with your buyer. So, if OTIF scores aren't looking great, in stock's not looking great, maybe wait on that conversation a little bit. Obviously, do what you need to do to get your business done, but just be cognizant of kind of your buyer's perception and what they are aware of. And again, hopefully this presentation is helpful to you guys to know what falls under your buyer's responsibilities and what doesn't, so that you are not kind of going after them for an AP-related deduction when that doesn't fall under them at all. So this can be a useful tool for dealing with, again, kind of those larger, more widespread deductions whenever possible. So yeah, after you've collected all that information and submitted all of the fun-proof documentation, hopefully you will have a successful dispute resolution. We have a lot of really great webinar content, again, free, around what that process can look like as well.
Yeah, actually on the next slide, I just wanted to call out, these are some of the resources we have on Supplier Wiki. If you go to our booth is 542. We have our deduction codes explained book and our target deductions explained book in hard copy. You can take those with you and read them on the plane.
Some light bedtime reading.
Yeah, exactly. But those just outline the different codes in both of those retailers and how you can dispute them, the documentation needed. But if you don't want to take these home, if your bag is full of samples, I totally get it. We have all of these digital on our website. On the back of the business cards at the front, you can actually access our Supplier Wiki website. We do webinars every week. We write articles. We talk to suppliers. We have partnerships with Walmart leaders who give us information. Actually, just posted last night, our team was furiously editing the video. We had a discussion with the Senior Director of Space Analytics at Walmart, and they're rolling out a new program called Quick Mods, which is just going to change lead times for modulars, so they can now be on like a 7-week. If you're familiar with item swap, it was a 1-for-1 swap out on shelf, and now they can do that to a whole modular and change that pretty much on a whim. So these are free to you. Please access them. And then on the next slide, I wanted to point out that we are having a conference. So if you are interested in learning more about deductions across all the retailers we've talked about today and kind of the future of those and where they're going, we are doing a completely free virtual webinar on October 13th. So join us there, and we'd be excited if you guys joined for that. Additionally, on the next slide, we have a little bit of our solution, and Stacey, I'm going to throw that over to you. I know that people have been hearing sales pitches all week, so we'll keep this very brief.
Yes, I know. I completely agree with Allie. The last thing we want to do is kind of talk you guys' ear off on that. So I'm going to keep this to a minute or less, and I have a clock in front of me, so I'm going to make sure I do that.
I'll hold you to it.
Okay. Yes, like take my microphone. Start playing like the Oscar walk-off music if I go beyond that. But yeah, so very, 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 very quickly, we do have an application called Deductions Navigator. We at SupplyPike, as Ellie mentioned, are a software company, so this is a completely automated deductions solution. What we do is we actually sync with Retail Link and all of those other portals that we talked about. We are pulling data from about 14 or 15 different applications within Retail Link. So you don't have to ever touch Retail Link again. It's a beautiful thought. Essentially what we do is you can kind of think of us as a layer on top of your Retail Link data. We basically harmonize, we aggregate all of that information. We will tell you how much Walmart has taken from you, in which codes, in which items, in which stores, in which DCs. So number one, you have that strategic information to be able to say, holy moly, item 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 is, disproportionately causing us a lot of deductions, or wow, we're getting a lot of pricing related deductions. That's a problem. What can we do about that? But we actually also take it a step further. So in addition to kind of giving you that strategic reporting information, we have automated the deduction dispute process. So we actually have integrations with close to 100 different carriers and 3PLs. We will automatically pull shipping documents for you and attach them to the right POs and claims. And you literally have to just click one button, and we will automatically shoot that off for you. And with Walmart, really, really cool. We actually have automated disputing. So now we've gone from 1 click to essentially 0 clicks. You can literally say, for any of my code 22, 24, 25, that's under $500 that has shipping documents attached to it, send it off. So we have literally helped our suppliers win back close to $500 million in the last 2 years alone. So Walmart loves us, but our suppliers love us too. So if that's interesting, as Ali mentioned, we have a booth here. Please stop by, come hang out with us. We'll be here all day. If not, we've got a couple of SupplyPike folks in the audience that will be happy to kind of answer any questions you have. Without a minute.
You were a little over.
Shoot.
I'm sorry. I was ready to pull it out. I was waiting. You were just 30 seconds over.
Okay, okay. All right, that's all I got.
We can go ahead and start the Q&A session if people have questions. You have a question in the back? No.
Nope.
Okay. Oh, she's got gift cards.
We have gift cards if you ask questions.
Yeah.
Are you guys looking at UNFI and KP and some of the other distributors and sort of, can everyone hear me? Yeah. UNFI and KP, are they like something you guys are going to be focusing on, or is it mostly more conventional?
That is a very good question. So, in case you guys couldn't hear, our attendee asked about UNFI and KP. So I know for right now the team is deep in research for those. We have heard those a lot come up over the last couple of days. So we have definitely shared that feedback with the product team. I know they're deep in research right now. No timelines on that. But we do have a couple, so we do have another solution. Again, I'm trying not to turn this into a sales pitch, but we do have a solution that can help pull the shipping documents for UNFI and KP called Document Explorer. We're happy to talk to you about that. But for the fully automated solution, like what we just showed, still in research right now.
Any other questions?
Sure. You guys mentioned that you guys do some stuff via Vendor Central, Amazon. You just, how much of that do you do? Can you just give me some background on what you guys do on Amazon?
Yeah, that's a very good question. So, question about Amazon, Vendor Central. So for right now, we are just focused on the deductions and compliance piece. So if you have any shortage-related or shipping-related deductions, any pricing-related deductions, we are handling that. We do not today handle any of the trade promotion piece of it, but I know, again, that's something that our team is actively researching. So more on the deductions and compliance side.
Any other questions? If not, we can pop our emails up on the next slide.
Yeah.
We want to make ourselves available. So these are our personal or our work emails. You can send us questions. We have suppliers who send us questions or ask for webinar topics or like, how are you researching this? Mm-hmm. And I lead our content team. So we kind of aggregate those. We look for the topics that get sent in and we start researching those in tandem with our product team.
Yeah.
And we'll still take questions.
Yeah, and it's totally okay. We can kind of end it and just
Yeah.
hang out if you guys just want to ask us down there. I know the lights have been very blinding for the last 60 minutes. Yes. So I've been trying to look at your faces. I apologize if I'm like looking off to the corner over there. But yeah, hopefully this was helpful to you guys. We know again the retailer deduction space can be very large. It can be very scary. As Ali mentioned, obviously, we're a business and we're here for that reason. But the Supplier Wiki resources, it's a very, very big part of what we do. I would say probably about a quarter of our company is like either ex-Walmart or ex-Supplier. We have some ex-Genpack people. We try not to hold that against them working at SupplyPike. So every company says this, but I truly believe that we really care about our suppliers. We've done it before. We've sat in your shoes. We've had the 5 a.m. buyer calls. We're going to delete you off the mod. Like, please don't do that. So we really care and hope that we can be a resource to you guys. So even if you don't necessarily work with SupplyPike, all of our webinars, all of our events are always free. Feel free to show up, even if you don't work with us, or send us an email, and we'll be happy to help.
Yes, thank you all for attending, and we'll just kind of mosey around and talk to you all if you're going to stick around. So thank you so much.